Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the C-22, and as you can take a look at it, it is a very tiny plane. We took a look at this airplane probably about a year and a half ago, and there's been a bunch of updates between now and then, so I'm like, this might be a good time to take another look at it and kind of get sort of a feel for it, so I'm kind of excited, so we'll go definitely take this out. So one of the interesting things here, of course, is this is an interesting aircraft. They only made 3 of these things as a way to have kind of like an early jet trainer, kind of like a T-33 Tweety Bird kind of a thing like that. And for those of you who are VR fans, you got to try this thing because it's insane. It's like an ultralight, but there's 2 jet engines in it. I mean, like if you stick your head here, this is like 8 inches off the ground. I mean, if you switch around this side, there's absolutely no ground clearance on this thing. And you were just sort of crammed in here. And you can see how you actually sit down in the seat. And again, let's create some vertigo for our uncomfortable pilots. And our feet go forward, and you can actually see that your foot would rest against the side of the nose of the plane. Small. That being said, it's kind of a neat plane, and one of the reasons I brought it back, of course, is because if you're trying to learn instrument flying with something that's fast, it's actually a really good choice. So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, they help us out quite a bit here. They actually tell us where the battery master switch is. I think that's kind of handy. I'll make sure my landing gear handle is down. And the way it works is real easy. You just come over here and press that button like that. Now, when you do that, of course, you're basically going to turn everything on. No, you're not. Everything starts off, which is a neat little feature of this plane. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get the engines started. Now, when you start the engines here, theoretically, you're supposed to start 1 engine at a time, but we've got places to be, right? So starting it is an absolute blast. All you're going to do is take these little throttles, and you're going to put them all the way to the end. And basically, we're going to be using these 6 switches to kind of get the process started. It's very easy. Down here, of course, if we wanted to just motor the engine, so we have the ability to do that if we wanted to check all of our gauges, and we'll get to that in a few moments here. So what I'm going to do is open these 2 up. I'm going to go ahead and open up the 2 fuel valves, and just go like this. That's it. We're starting. So if we come over here now, you'll see that everything is starting to warm itself up immediately. Our oil pressure is coming into the green here. You can see our EGT. We're not actually going to kick anything off right away until we get enough power. And you suddenly see it go, there it goes. So you can see we got an automatic light off at about 27%. You can see it's starting to slow down a little bit. I do want to throw a little bit more combustibles in here, though, because we're a little low. I'm not going to lie. I don't know why it's a little tank. There we go. Hey, there we go. Now we got some fuel. One thing I do want to say is this thing does not carry a lot of fuel. We have about 420 liters total. That's it. You're going to power through that fuel. Like, it'll amaze you how short our flight is today and how much fuel I'm going to go through in that time. So now that that's going, we're just going to come down here. Of course, we want to shut the generators off. You could. If you do that, of course, keep in mind that you have to rearm the generator in order to activate the generator. That's just sort of a fun little thing you have to do is basically tell it to be ready, and then it'll come on automatically. Pushing this button shuts the generator off. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to come over here. While we're down here, I'm going to go ahead and set my takeoff trim. You need a pretty significant amount of trim here. I actually like half a click of nose up. So if you take a look here, we're about halfway nose up. It makes it just a little bit easier. After that, we're going to come over here and start hitting some of our switches. Attitude indicator, turn coordinator, strobe lights, nav lights if you need them if it's nighttime. That should be good to go. These guys are going to take a few moments to kind of come straighten out. I wouldn't worry about them too much. While that's going, of course, I'm going to swing over to our middle panel. Here's our radio panel. We'll turn them on by clicking the little tiny knobs here. You just have to kind of like crank them, and that works. I'll go ahead and get our initial frequency in here. We're going to be flying up to Bradley today, so I'll get my 11490 in there. And of course, once that's done, you can see this is going to do its little happy dance here. It's just a matter of picking the correct location. It's going to be mostly north today, so let's go get that all kind of squared away here. Didn't think it was going to be quite that much north. That looks good there, and I appreciate the nice slow instrument. All right, now that that's taken care of, we'll go bounce over here. We have a Collins DME. I'm going to go ahead and press the on button. 33.6 nautical miles away. You have knot mode, and of course you have minute mode, depending on which mode you have. Nautical miles is fine, and of course we do have an altitude alerter on here. The altitude alerter is a little awkward to use. If you grab this thing and drag it, you can set it. So, for example, if I crank this up, let's do a 3500, I can do that. You can also hold your mouse over this and use the mouse wheel to be a little more precise with it. So you can see we're about 3500 as our altitude alerter. Do you see an autopilot? There is none. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, if you take a look at your engine instruments here, we've got a couple things to kind of pay attention to with this one. Again, this is an older design here. Of course, we have everything we need as far as our N1. That's going to be primary power. Generally, we keep it 100% or less. We have a nice little display of N1 over here, too, to help us out. We, of course, have our exhaust gas temperature, oil pressure, temp, pressure, and everything along those lines. Now, if I actually come over here and snap this, you can actually see our current amperage that we're pulling here. And you can actually switch between the 2 generators if you're worried about it. But you can see our system's running at 28. Outside air temperature, it's nice and comfortable. You can tweak the brightness if you want. So at this point, we're now ready to go ahead and start our taxiing. Taxiing this thing is goofy. Remember how low we are. Again, we're half the size of the person standing in front of us. So when it comes to taxiing this thing, it's twitchy. So I'm going to go ahead and release my parking brake. I'm going to go ahead and unlock my throttles. And I'm going to go ahead and give me some left, left throttle. I was right the first time. I'm going to go ahead and stop my right foot. And when you release the parking, it doesn't happen all at once. Like you expect almost a little bit more snappy performance of this thing, but the nose wheel in this thing is not the most peppy, to say the least. So even though I'm absolutely cranking on it, and I'm only running my left engine at basically half throttle right now, you can see this thing's just like, yeah, no. And also hit this guy's kneecaps with my wing. Like, how often do you have a wing like that? I mean, like, that's pretty incredible if you think about it. So we're going to go make our way over here. I've already reduced the throttle, and you can see everything takes a moment to kind of spool back down there. Switch to two throttles. Takeoff, of course, they recommend a click of flaps. You can't see the flaps from here, which is disturbing. I don't know that I like that very much. I like to be able to see kind of a thing like that. So we're going to give it just a little bit of thrust. The engines do spool very slowly, but you have a surprising amount of thrust for the little weight of this thing. I mean, when you take a look at it, you can see very clearly, it's just like I said, there's nothing to this thing. It's absolutely fantastic. So we're going to make our way over. I'm just going to take a look at all our engine instruments. Everything looks like it's in the green right now. For those of you who use Air Manager, which is a neat little software where you can make your own instruments, somebody actually made this panel, so you can actually have it on like your third screen or something like that. And I just think that's wild that somebody would have taken the time to do it for this particular aircraft. You know, a lot of people don't talk about this one, but like I said, if you want an instrument trainer with a jet engine on the back seat, this thing's actually really, really good at it. So we're just going to make our way nice and gently here. Again, it's not too bad once you kind of get it rolling here. Just take a look at my instruments, making sure things work. Turn coordinators, whatever that is. Turn coordinators pointing over to the right there. We've got our G set to 0. All of our needles are moving smoothly. Going to go past onto the runway here. Check the approach. Like I said, I don't think anybody's here today. I'm not going to worry too much. Click. We'll go ahead and snap that sucker on just to make sure people can see us a little better. Now, the takeoff on this one is a little weird. If you set your trim correctly, it's not bad at all. If you did not set your trim correctly, it's going to be feeling like you're trying to rip the runway. You'll know what I mean when you try it, kind of a thing. It's quite an effort to get this thing up in the air. The good news for us, though, is it's really polite. This is a straight wing jet, folks, and that just makes it easy. All right, so let's go get lined up with the runway. Go give everybody a quick little wiggle for victory here. Of course, we can't really see if it's working. Looks good to me. So we're going to go ahead and bring our power up to about half. And we're just going to make sure both engines spool nice and smoothly. Looks good to me. We're going to push it the rest of the way, release the brakes, come up to full power. And we're on the way. That's it. And you can hear just how mellow this thing is. It's just relaxing. It's hard to explain. So what we're going to do is we're going to race down this runway here. Keep in mind you're very low to the ground, so you feel every bump in your butt. So we're going to get up right around 80 knots. We're going to go ahead and pull the stick back just a little bit. We're just going to do a little bit of a power wheelie here. If it sinks back down, it just means relax. And we're just going to hold it airborne. We're going to get up the landing gear immediately. And we're just going to settle a little bit here. I'm going to bring that nose up just a little bit because we're going to try to stay in our flap safe speed here. Looks good to me. Go ahead and bring up that notch of flaps. We're going to let the nose come down just a little bit as we do that. Nice. I'm just going to pull back just a little bit, just kind of keeping the dashboard on the horizon. It seems to be pretty smooth here. And we are on our way. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and start heading over towards Hartford now. So our best climb speed on this one, you're looking for between 140 and 160 knots. And that seems to work pretty darn well. Like I said, there's not a lot of drama here. If you notice, this aircraft has a bit of a twitch to it. The reason it's like that is on account of the fact that, remember, we have no moment of inertia. We're like a little tiny thing here. So that's always going to be having a big impact on your performance here. For those of you in VR, like I said, this is an absolute trip of an airplane. Another thing you're probably going to notice is when you go ahead and execute any sort of roll, you need quite a bit of flaps in order to keep the aircraft nice and stable. So I'm going to go pull that nose up just a little bit then. Again, I'm putting the edge of the dash on the horizon. Oh, my goodness, this thing needs a lot of nose up trim. That's actually a good thing. Not that it needs up trim, but it has a trim that's actually smooth. Reasonable amounts of trim, not like Twitch Microsoft trim. So we're on our way now. I'm going to go take a look at all my instrumentation. We're basically at our peak. We're actually over peak here. So I'm actually going to pull the throttle back a little bit. We don't want to be going that hard. There we go. 104 is a little more polite. Better. Everything else is in the green. I don't see anything kind of outside of green. Pretty good. You can see here from our little HSI that we're starting to swing our way over towards our destination. Climb rate is good. Like I said, it's not fabulous. We're not, F-16 or anything here. We're basically a nice lightweight, like I said, Italian jet trainer. Swinging over on this side, we can see everything is working correctly. My altitude learner is about to scream at me. And I'm going to go ahead and bring the nose down just like this. Now, it's going to have a weird stiffness to it. So like when you push the nose down, it's going to look like you have to push it down even further than you expected it to. So I'm going to go ahead and start bringing in some trim here. Let that nose come down a little more. And now you're going to meet kind of an interesting little quirk of this plane, and that is the fact that the wind gets extremely loud. You're going to feel like you forgot to put your landing gear up, or you left some speed brakes out, or something along those lines. And it gets really, really windy. The other thing this aircraft will do is as you start to pick up speed, especially if a nice low altitude when you still have plenty of thrust right now, you're going to run into a situation where it'll start beeping at you to notify you that you're going a little too fast. So I'm going to go ahead and back the throttle out just a little bit here. Basically, the manual that we could find tells us that we get 100% as our cruise RPM. So I'll go down to 99 here, and I'll be irritated by that incredibly strong wind that is absolutely blasting my ears right now. And again, it's so much more comfortable out here if it weren't for the extremely loud whine. So what I will do here, I'll go ahead and get my nose back under control is what I will do. There we go. We don't want to be violating any airman certification standards here. There we go. We'll go ahead and a little bit more down trim. Like I said, it feels like the nose is pointing down because the nose is pointing down. That's just one of those fun little quirks of this plane. You also notice that twitchiness, that kind of like the nose kind of doing that little jogging thing. And again, we're almost getting close to our peak speed here, which we want to be kind of mindful of. Little clicking you're listening to is me trying to trim it. There it is. Do you hear it? Yeah, told you. So I'm going to go ahead and back the throttle down here. That's what I love about this aircraft, is it's like, oh no, 100% is a good cruise RPM. Sure, it's a good cruise RPM if you want to cause all sorts of damage to the aircraft. There we go. I'll go ahead and reduce it. About 80% is probably going to be enough, or 85 is probably going to be plenty. Again, we're not exactly what I would consider to be flight training altitude, so we're a little low for that. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to keep it down here just to make it kind of fun for us. All right, let's go ahead and give ourselves a couple clicks of that nose up trim. Oh, nice. I basically got it perfect. I'm going to go back my throttle down a little bit. Now, a few minutes ago, one of the things I was mentioning about this airplane is it's not great on the gas, and you don't carry a lot of it. As a matter of fact, if I were to float over here, you can actually see that we have gone down about 8% of our fuel supply so far, and now we've been airborne no more than 12 minutes, just to give you an idea of how fast you can power through your fuel. So what I'm going to do is a little bit of quick skip trip here. That wasn't too bad. So what we've done now is we've just about gotten to the VOR that we were heading to a minute ago. Lovely Hartford sitting over our left. We got real-world time and weather today, if you're ever curious when I do some of these things. Different schedule, of course. So we've entered into the no more Saturdays because the school year started time of year, sadly. So what we're going to do now is we're going to be heading up the Connecticut River here. I can see the little squiggle twist, which is our lovely Connecticut River. And we're basically going to set up for a visual landing on runway 23 over at Bradley. I'll make it kind of easy for us. Now, the nice thing is this is not a complex aircraft as far as landing. The bad news is because I was mentioning earlier that you're so darn low to the ground, when you go to land this, you're going to do your flare, and then you're still going to have 15 feet of air underneath you because of the fact that you haven't expected it. Now you can see very, very distinctively at this 250 knot speed here how that nose is kind of doing that little kind of dance a little bit, just like I was promising a few minutes ago. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and set my heading bug for the correct runway heading here. We're going to set it to 33, just like that. I basically need to pull myself north to get lined up for that. There we go. We also need to lose a ton of altitude here. All right, pull the throttle back just a little bit. Delightful. Again, it takes very little. This is why this is a great instrument trainer. All right, so while that's doing that, let's get everything all squared away here. There we go. And I can see pretty clearly that I've got a little ways to go. Nothing too bad. 3-3. I'm going to go get that lined in. You can see I'm underneath my little glide slope there. Of course, I'm awfully close to it, though. What I really need to do is kind of square myself up a little bit more to the east here. That looks pretty good to me about right there. That looks good. You can see it's got the little jigglies here from the turbulence. Basically no weight on this thing at all. As a matter of fact, one of the things we should probably take a look at while we're looking at it. So if you come in here, you can see my max takeoff weight is heavier than a Cessna, or lighter than a Cessna 182. So, I fly Cessna 182s. This thing is lighter. That's just, that kills me. That kills me. All right, let's get a little closer to the runway. All right, we're just about established. Got to come to my right a little bit here. Now, one of the neat things is, because this is a military jet trainer, it actually has pretty good performance as far as aerobatics goes. You can definitely be a little rough with it without being afraid of tearing the wings off. If you actually take a look at our G rating there, we're good to 7 Gs. I cannot imagine pulling 7Gs in an aircraft like this. It's so small that just the physics involved in something that has so little inertia. It's fascinating to me. I don't know. I think it's incredible. Anyway, let's start slowing down. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the throttle back. I should really concentrate on my landing and not on my chit chat here. Let the nose come down just a little bit. You can see here that our landing gear, we can basically 142-ish, which is pretty good for us. I can actually see the runway. Was not looking for it, but there it is. So we're going to go, and of course you're hoping for speed brakes. No speed brakes. That's just one of those nasty little things that they did not provide for us. Fortunately, we do have landing gear though, and now that I can pull the nose up, let's go ahead and get those landing gear down. Delightful. So now that I've got my landing gear down, I can go ahead and start working on my flaps and slowing us down. There's that 140 right there. You can see all sorts of fun little green lights are kind of flickering and everything like that. But it does slow down pretty reasonably fast here. All right, landing gear in the correct position. Everything's good. There's my speed brakes. I misspoke. The entire flap tips to get speed brakes. My apologies, everybody. There we go. I was hitting the wrong button on my joystick. My bad. All right, so everything's looking good. We can see we got about 120 knots. Approach speed is about 95 if you're looking for a magical speed to hit the ground at here. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the rest of the flaps. We're way over glide slope here because we were goofing around too much trying to play with the outside views there. Go ahead and slim down. About 120 is good. Like I said, just keep us away from that 140. Come on. There we go. Fantastic. We could basically coast all the way to the ground. Now that control stiffness I was describing a little earlier really fights you here. About 120, looks pretty good. Bring that nose up just a hair. Yeah, we're just a little fast. I've got speed brakes though. You can see the speed brakes also create lift. Kind of neat. Nice. Nose up a little bit. A little fast, but that's okay. And remember, you are very, 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 very low to the ground. We are going to land, right? So much for following the approach speed recommendations. See how it looks like we're literally going to sink into the ground? Isn't that fantastic? And we are now safe and down on the ground. So as you can see, this is kind of a neat little airplane. There's definitely some speed issues there. It definitely said 9, whatever, I'm not going to worry about it. The cool thing here is that this is a really, really solid IFR platform. Now you can see it's got all kind of the challenges you probably come to expect with IFR, plus you're a jet, plus you can easily do 250 knots in something that is lighter than a Cessna 182. Enjoy.